Coming up on the program today, it's building raised beds in your backyard. We'll show you the materials and how to go about doing it the easy way so you have the best success.
If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. Well, this year we are starting a new project, and that is building raised beds in our traditional ground garden. A couple of reasons why we're doing this. One, convenience, ease, and because it wasn't fun anymore for doing it in the ground garden. We'd spend hours and days each year working the 10 foot by 3 foot beds, weeding the beds with a garden fork, removing all the weeds, and we get more weeds and more weeds no matter what we'd done. And the production of our plants did suffer because of that. So instead of 1,800 square feet, with the raised beds that we're creating and the grow bags in which we'll have about 425, 430 square feet of great compost to grow in. This should exceed what we were getting in our 1,800 square foot garden from last year. So yeah, it's going to be more, it's going to be smaller, but the production is going to be higher because of the nutrient density and the richness of the soil in which we're bringing in. If it's not fun anymore, you need to figure out what you're doing wrong to make it fun. This will be fun for us. One, the construction of the raised beds, but two, getting the produce out of it, not needing to weed nearly as much, and seeing what garden vegetables and fruits should do and should thrive with a little bit of work. So let's talk about the materials in which we have here. These are pressure treated lumber. Now you can do the research on whether or not you want to use pressure treated lumber in your garden. These are treated with a copper material. Arsenic has not been used for decades. It was back in the 90s, but it's no longer used in that aspect. This copper has been treated, this wood has been treated with the copper, and it is safe. You can do your own research to find out how you feel about it, but our research has shown that very little to no traces of copper gets leached into the soil. Copper is an element in which plants and humans need in order to grow and live. So keep that in mind. If you're going to grow certified organic, this does not work. The certification of organics says that you cannot grow in raised beds that are treated. However, you can grow in raised beds that are treated if the one side that touches the soil has plastic on it, preventing the soil from touching the treated lumber. I don't know. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to cut some of these boards down for the end caps, and then we will start constructing them in the place in which the beds are going to be living for a long time. Plus the treated wood will give us, I'm going to say, every bit of 8 to 10, maybe 12 years. Untreated lumber, maybe 5, 6 years, give or take. We've never done raised beds in that longevity. You can treat untreated wood with a paint or a stain in order to get more life out of it, but we went with the pressure treated. Now we've got 4 16 foot by 10-inch boards. These are 2 by 10s all the way through. You can go 2 by 12s. The minimum amount of height you want to have is 8 inches. That's really your lowest capability of getting a good growth of plants. And people can has gone as high as 24 inches and made ledges in which they can sit on the bed. It's all personal preference, how much you're willing to spend on all of that. So I got 4 2 by 10 16 foot long. I've got 8 2 by 10s 12 foot long, 2 8 foots 2 by 10s, and then I've got 3 2 by 4s 8 foot long. These are going to be for the support in the center so the beds don't bow out. And one of the 12s is going to be cut in 3 pieces for end cap. So we figured out, instead of getting an extra 1.5 or 2 more 8 foot boards and still have 4 foot left over, I could get a 12 for what we were using. So with all that being said, we're going to construct them over there. You could do it in the driveway, get everything squared up, but these things are very heavy and I don't want to have to try to move them over there. I want them to be right where they need to be. So we're going to get started. This was all delivered. Now you could go pick this up if you have a large vehicle or a trailer, especially with the 16 foot boards or whatever you're wanting to build. We had this delivered by a big box store. The cost of material and delivery was $325. Being upfront with you, it is an investment up front, but it will pay dividends for the years to come in the production of the produce. And we still have to have compost brought in too, but that's another step for another day. So I'm going to get these cut, we're going to get them hauled over there, and we'll start putting these beds together. Bring it right up over, right over here, about 3 foot off. About 3 foot off the fence. Okay, go and drop yours. Put the next one here, next one here, next one here, and then we'll bring the 4s over here. Okay, so we got our boards cut. Now, if you don't have a radial arm saw or any way to cut it, there's 2 different options in which you have. You can purchase these at your garden or your big box store and some lumber yards. They will cut the dimensions for you if you don't have the availability. You can also use a hand saw. We found that radial arm saw in the junk of a very rich neighborhood a couple of years ago, and it works just like brand new, so it works well for us. So we got those cut 4 foot increments here, and we're going to put those together. Now also, something you want to be aware of when you're constructing your raised bed is where the perimeters are, that the walk paths around your raised beds. You could go 2 foot, we could have gone 2 foot and squeezed another bed in. However, if you're going to maneuver equipment through the garden, such as a wheelbarrow, 3 foot is really your minimum requirement here to get good access down the aisle. So from fence to this stake here, that's 3 foot. It's a little tight for the wheelbarrow, but it will work, and that'll give us enough walking paths, walking availability, all of that. So keep in mind what you want to do. 3 is ideal, 2 is tight a little bit to get through. So it's all in your walking ability. We talked about the treated lumber and how it's safe for us and our research here in the United States. Different countries have different requirements, so do your own research. This here was an untreated board that we had in our raised bed out in the front yard there. This would be going on our 3rd summer. This is a pine board untreated, and you can see how this was in contact with the soil and how it has begun to really decay and rot quite a bit. Top here was where there was no soil. Now on this side here, we painted it. Wasn't in direct contact with any soil, but you can see that the stability of it is much stronger than the untreated or unpainted wood, and I don't know why we didn't paint both sides, but you can see that. Now we will continue to use this for about another year or 2 until it completely disintegrates, and we might invert, that would be the ideal thing, we would invert it to have the painted side up against soil, but we'll figure that out. That just shows you, and this is another instance, how quickly this can decay if it's not treated or painted. Okay, so now what we want to do here is, you can do this by yourself, however it does make a great benefit to have additional help to do such. Fasteners to put these 2 together. You can use screws, which works fine. You do have to have a drill. We do have a drill, however I shied away from that simply because you're going to have screws, and if you don't do it right, you get that and you strip out the screw head, and you got to take pliers and unbreak it off or unscrew it, and nails work very well. We're using 6-inch ring shank nails. You could get away with 4-inch, would be fine. We just went ahead, the little extra cost, a little more stability. Figured we're going to go big, let's do it big and do this really well, because these beds are going to be intact for quite some time. So, it doesn't make a difference on top or bottom. It really doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do here is, if you were on a flat surface, this would work better, but we can make it work with what we have here. Again, this doesn't have to be super duper wonderful because it's not the framework of your bathroom in your house. This is a raised bed, okay? Keep that in mind. Additionally, what you see here, we didn't prep the soil here at all. We didn't go in with a tiller and then level it, grade, and all that stuff. We'll get these beds put together, and then we will go ahead and level them out individually, and then we'll fix the walk paths, trying to take as few steps as possible to get to the end destination of having these beds filled. Just another step of having to till and level and all that stuff. Do what works best for you. This is what works best for us. Okay, so we can do a couple of things. I was thinking I'd need 3 nails in this board. I think 2 is going to be more than adequate. So what I've done here, I've laid the board flat and I've got my nails started until they've penetrated through the other side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick the board up and tap these nails back a little bit because I've gone too far. Okay, that's better. And then I'm going to take and get these flush. Get the top board or the side board and the front board here as flush as possible. And based on if your board is warped or not, this can be a challenge. Our boards are fairly straight, so we're not going to have too much of an issue. So then, works a lot better than trying to balance everything and nail by kicking this way. However, what I didn't do, I didn't start the nails on the other end, so I'll have to start them like this way when I go to the other end. So don't do it that way. Do it the way I taught you. So all the nails are started before you flip the board. All right. Let's get this. Fairly close. Okay. All right, so that's board 1. Now we'll go on the other end and put those together, and then I'll show you a trick on how we can do the top board as easy as we did these. Okay, one done. So now to make this easy, when we put the other 16 foot on there, I'm going to flip this thing vertical and lay the board on top of it. So this can be done pretty easy. That's the best way I figured out how to do this when constructing, instead of having to bend over like that. Now you can pre-drill these holes. That's not an issue. These nails seem to go in very smooth. Again, 4-inch probably would be adequate. We went with 6-inch. So I'm going to flip this up and get this other side on, and then we'll throw it back down and I'll go ahead and get the rest of these put together. Okay, so now I'm just going to flip it vertical. It's not level, but we don't need to be level quite yet. Now, if you're doing this by yourself, this is how you're going to do it. If you got help, it makes it all the more better. I'm going to try to get this to balance on there, but you may need assistance here. Let's just try one more time. Okay, that'll be good. Now let me get my hammer. So it can be done. Can be done by yourself, but certainly helps to have additional help. Okay, so if you take a look at this, okay, so what we want to do is when I talk about getting things flushed, we want to make this as smooth as possible. You can see right here we're flush. Here it's in about 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to go ahead and start this nail, get it fully nailed down, and then I can beat the board back out to get it flush to get these things as square as possible. Again, this is a raised bed, not the foundation of your house. So however precise you want to be, and I know there's many of you out there that want this to be as picture perfect as possible. That's fine. If that works for you. For us, we want it to be as pretty as possible. We want it to be done, efficiently and not take hours to do. But it's always personal preference. So I'm just telling you how we are doing it. So again, go ahead and start the nail. All right. Oh, came. Well, here's what we can do on that. Get that squared up a little bit. That's just the way it's going to be. I'm not going to pull that nail back out to do it. So just kind of square, try to get that lip all the way through. It's not going to be That's a 1/4 inch at best, so. Okay. And then I'll do the same on the other side. I'll flip this bed down, and then we'll move on to the next ones. Okay, got this one all put together. Now here's the time you can look at your boards, and you can do this beforehand or afterhand. Really makes no difference. If there is a better cut side versus the other side, that's what you'd want up versus what's down. I do have a little knot here, but other than that, I think everything's going to be just fine. Either way we go. So that's a 4-foot by 16-foot bed. We've got one more of those to do, and then 4-foot by 12-foot beds. So that's what we're going to do. Once we get those done, we'll come back, get them set it in, squared up, and leveled out. All right, so we've got 2 of the 5 beds constructed and spaced out that we're going to do on this end of the garden, and that's all we're going to do. But a happy accident in which we created was on this board here and on this board here. If you look on this board, you can see it's bowed in a little bit, and that's what you want if you're going to use long lumber that's not pure straight. Kind of hard to find that when a long runs like 16 foot. But this is actually beneficial because though when we get completely done here, we're going to have support stakes in the side here to kind of keep it from bowing out. This actually will help the strength of the board, even with the 2x4 here as a structural support, from bowing. It'll actually kind of bow it back straight. So it works well in that aspect, and that's the same on this board here. So kind of a happy accident. If you can do it, make it work, that'll work well for you too. So we got all of our beds put together. We've got 4 4-foot by 12-foot beds, and then we've got 2 4-foot by 16-foot beds. Now the next thing we need to think about is leveling the beds out. And though the beds do not look level, it's an optical illusion. You can use a bar level, you can use an app on a phone. That's what we chose to use, very accurate. And these are all within 1/4 of an inch of being true level. Now you can see over here, I've got a 4-inch gap here. However, the bed is level within 1/4 of an inch. So why is that? Just the way the ground is setting. Now what some gardeners may choose to do is go in here and make sure that the bottom of the raised bed has contact with the soil all the way around and level it that way. That is what we're not choosing to do, and for a variety of reasons. One, it takes extra time, and 2, this bed, before we put compost in, is going to have a couple of things occur to it. The walk paths between the beds, which are 3 foot wide, will take a shovel and take an eyeball, a level walk path, and throw that dirt in the bed, and probably throw it up next along the edge here. And secondly, before we do that, we'll layer these beds with cardboard that we have, just because we have it and it'll be a good foundation. Throw the dirt in from the walk paths, and then before we add the compost in which we're having delivered, the raised bed behind me and the 3 grow bags, that soil will be dumped in these beds evenly as a base, as well as the compost pile we have behind the shed. Then we will take the compost that is delivered, put on top, and top level all of these beds out. And then the excess compost in which we're purchasing will refill these beds in a different portion of the garden. So now with the 2x4s in which we've got to do something with those. And those are going to be side support braces. I've got them cut at 16 inches. And what you could do is go on the inside and put them. That's what many gardeners choose to do. And then they nail from the outside inside. And this is adding a structure support to prevent the walls from bowing out. Now, we've done a little experimental project, and that didn't seem to work very well, the nailing process and all of that. So what we're choosing to do is actually put them on the exterior portions of the raised bed. It may not look as clean, and you're going to have to trim around it when this all turns into grass. But hey, you're going to have to trim around the beds anyway. We don't have a lawnmower that'll get that close to the beds, and I don't want to get that close to scrape them up. Just going to trim with the weed whacker anyway. So I cut them at 16 inches from point to straight edge, and I'm going about halfway down the bed. You can see there's coffee grounds here. I'm just going to clean this up here, throw those in, and I'm going to take and put it in the ground. Now, I don't have to necessarily get it flush with this. I can go a little lower. It's just how pretty do you want the post or the 2x4 to be. Now you see that did pull away. So what we will do is we'll get some 3-inch ring shank nails. Get that down a little farther. Get some 3-inch ring shank nails and drive them in from the outside to the inside. And we'll probably do that once the compost is in the bed, simply because it'll add as a good foundation to nail into. So I'm going to do that with all the beds, the 16-foot long beds. I'm going to make these a little longer, I think about 20 inches from point to flat edge. And this is personal preference on however it works best for your situation. This is what we're doing. This is the guideline that we're providing to help you and give you some tips along the way. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. And then we'll talk a little bit more about wrapping up the project for today on these raised beds. So this is the conclusion of phase 1 of the raised bed construction. I did take on the longer beds here, I did put a couple additional bracing, and then as the compost gets filled, we'll nail those in with 3-inch ring shank nails. Before the compost comes, we'll knock down the walk paths. We'll put cardboard in the bottom here. I did throw some leaves in. We'll put cardboard in the bottom, level these walk paths out, empty the grow bags, and then get the compost in. Well, today is the day that our compost has arrived, and now the job of getting it from the driveway to our raised beds. Now this is 6 yards raised bed mix. So this is 6 yards today. We're getting another 4.5 yards next week. Now this will fill most of the raised beds, and then we've also got giant grow bags and containers that we're going to fill not only here but in other locations. That's why we're getting so much. Now with all of this, there is a cost. We're going to break it down to you. It's obviously much cheaper to buy it in bulk, and when we go to the raised beds, I'll explain why. But I'm going to give you the total price of the compost and the delivery. Each delivery is a fee as well, so that they can only do so much. If you're in a different part of the country, you might be able to get your local garden center that provides bulk material to deliver everything that you need all at once. So with 10.5 yards, 2 delivery fees, it's $960. $80 a yard for the Purple Cow raised bed mix. So it's a very good mix. Now you think, oh my, that's a lot of money. It can be. However, remember, we are filling raised beds. And in a growing season, by using good compost in those raised beds, we're going to exceed $960 of overall of produce coming out of this bed. These beds, the other beds we have on the property, sister-in-law's raised beds, in which where some of this is going to go at the house on the containers. So it gets distributed here, but it will outweigh itself. And again, this is not like every year I got to go buy this. This is an investment, a one-time year investment that will pay dividends over and over again. There'll be some topping off that needs to be required, but a minimum amount. So we'll talk about how we're going to get it over there, but let's go over the raised beds and talk about, if you have a smaller raised bed, does it make sense to just buy bags of stuff from your big box store, or does it really pay to get the bulk material? Okay, so let's take this bed for example. This is a 4-foot wide by 16-foot long bed. Now maybe not all of you are needing a size of a bed of this magnitude. So let's break it down. This will take 2 cubic yards to fill up. Now obviously there is material already in here from our raised grow bags and some shredded paper and leaves, so that's going to decrease the volume in which we need to bring over. But anyway, this takes it bare empty, 10 inches high, 4 foot wide by 16 foot long. It'll take 2 cubic yards to fill up. So what if we just wanted to do a 4x4 bed? 10 inches high, a half a yard, full yard is 27 cubic feet of soil. So now you're looking at a half of a yard, which is about 13.5 cubic feet of soil. You go to the big box store, you buy the El Cheapo stuff on sale, don't recommend it, but you're paying, let's say, average of $10 a bag. You need 13 bags to fill a 4x4 bed, 10 inches high. That's $130 that you're going to have to spend on a 4x4 bed. I'm spending a fraction of that on this whole bed because I'm buying in bulk. Now, for example, Blue Mel's Landscape and Garden Center, you can go and have a trailer and have them load you up the requirements that you're looking for. Based on the situation and the year, you can go, and I have gone and loaded the back of the trunk up by putting in bags and buckets and then taking it and bringing it home and filling raised beds up that way, buying a half a yard in bulk. So it's much, much cheaper, much more affordable to buy in bulk, but not everybody has that availability. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill the wheelbarrows up, bring them over here, and start filling these raised beds up. Now let's go back over the compost pile and let's talk about the easiest way to possibly fill a wheelbarrow up. I know it's maybe common sense, but let's talk about the ease of it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We've got a 6 cubic foot wheelbarrow, and that would be, there's 27 wheelbarrows here. I did the math, just kind of know how many trips it would take. So some people will do like this, which is fine, but you're not working with yourself. You want to work so one motion fills the wheelbarrow. The other way, whenever it's filled, the pile's full like this, you can tip the wheelbarrow and work a lot of this in there so you don't have to lift. And then then at a certain point you have to tip it up and then you just top it off. So try to figure out what the easiest motion is for you so you have less time, less moves to make to fill the wheelbarrow up. And you can use, if you have to use a small shovel so you can easily scoop it versus a large shovel. Yeah, a large shovel is going to let you move more mass, but the shovel's heavier and it's going to hurt you in the long run by trying to lift more to try to get the job done quicker. Doesn't work as well based on maybe your condition. So we're going to take and start filling wheelbarrows up and just start dumping it in the raised beds, and then this will all be gone in a matter of a few hours. Okay, so we've got bed 1 filled here, and we're filling with help, we're filling other beds. So what we wanted to do here is we want to fill it within about 1/4 of an inch of the top, give or take. And we want to have a little bit of a hump in the center. The reason being is this is going to settle. Even though it's compost, got all the amendments in it and porous material, it's going to settle a little bit, and we're going to get a lot of rain tonight. So what we want to do is have a little hump in the middle, not arching like a rainbow, but then as it settles, then we can come in and knock it down a little bit, and then when we get another load of the compost, and we can top dress these beds and get them within 1/4 of an inch and final dress them. Now, between the beds or the walk paths, we didn't actually go in with a shovel and level grade it all out. What I chose to do was, our compost pile behind the shed has been there for a couple of years, and we've progressively thrown weeds and stuff, all kitchen scraps, in that pile. It's a cold compost, which means it doesn't get to the adequate 170 to 2 degrees for consider 3 or 4 days to kill the germination rate of those viable seeds in there. So the seeds are active, and if we was to mix it in at the bottom of this raised bed as we plant and dig, it would agitate them up to the top and we'd have weeds. So what I decided to do was just take the wheelbarrow and dump a load between these walk paths, and that really does help smooth out the imperfections in it. So it doesn't have to be level grade. If you choose to make everything perfect level grade, that's fine for you. For us, we just want to, fill in the holes, make it somewhat level, and utilize that compost. Now we will create a new compost pile in the coming weeks, but this is the way we can utilize our old compost in the garden and not actually put it in the bed and stir up the seeds at some point. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of these filled out. Now what I'm doing with the metal rock rake here is, all I'm doing, Holly's doing this, she's coming in and just knocking this down to a level grade and then just leaving a little hump in the center. And then when we begin to plant, we will bring in the leaves in which we have in the garden that we've stockpiled from last year. We'll mulch them to bring them down to a smaller consistency, also chemical-free, seed-free grass clippings, and we'll utilize that as mulch to hold the moisture in these raised beds. This here will be our tomato bed, and as we construct it, we'll have fence posts or T-post here with the Florida weave, but we'll get into that another day. So we'll get the rest of these filled up as the pile begins to diminish in the driveway and the beds begin to fill in the garden. All right, the pile's getting less and less there. So what we do, I overfill the wheelbarrow, so at the end of the day there's fewer trips I have to make. So all I do is we just dump it in there. Now this wheelbarrow is 6 cubic foot, so it may be more than some people would be able to handle, so you can only fill it as full as you can lift it. But if I can fill it more than 6 cubic feet per load, end of the day makes fewer trips, and I'll be sore tomorrow, but that's okay. All right, so once we get it filled, and then Holly comes in and she knocks it down the level grade like you see over there. So we've gotten 3 filled. Now that won't be enough compost to fill all of these beds. That's 6 yards. I need 8 yards here, so we'll get another 4 next week for additional items, but we'll go ahead and finish the rest of these off until we run out of compost. So we've got almost all the beds filled. We've got about a half of a bed left here to fill that we didn't have enough compost for. More's coming. And it always makes it easy when we lay it out on a tarp. That way at the end of the day, you can drag what little bit is left and dump it in without having to scrape it up off the pavement, or if you dump it on your lawn or rocks or whatever the case is. So now we'll finish filling that one up. And then it's time to plant. We can't plant right now. We're about a week away from actually good temperatures for the cool weather crops. Midweek, we're looking at lows in the low to mid 20s, so we still are not even safe to do any of the cool weather crops. So that's how we've built the raised beds and how we filled the raised beds. There's many different variations, but this is a guideline in which we're helping you so you can not make the mistakes that we make. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time as we talk more and grow more in the raised beds. As always, thank you for watching. Subscribe, rate, and comment.